Hello, I guess we are live. It's gone to my face. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ask the Experts, the show where you can connect directly with experts to get your questions answered live. So go ahead and throw your answers into the chat and we'll get to as many of them as we can. My name is Glenn. I am a program manager who works on a whole bunch of programming models, ASP.NET Core in particular, but also kind of Entity Framework. My team works on .NET Interactive, a whole bunch of stuff like that across .NET. And with me, I have the one and only, this way, I'm just realizing, this way, the one and only Scott Hunter. Scott?
So Glenn, I can't wait for people to ask their answers.
Ask their answers. Did I say ask the answers?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, if you could provide us the answers, we will provide you with the questions.
Yes, if you ask the answer, we'll give you the question. That's we're good at that.
Yeah.
So I am Scott Hunter, Director of Program Management at Microsoft on the .NET platform, and both David and Glenn work on my team. And we build all .NET, whether it's the tools for .NET, .NET Framework, .NET 5, all the .NETs. And so we are here to answer questions primarily about probably .NET 6, which is something we just announced, had a bunch of big announcements at Build just a few weeks ago.
Yeah. David, do you want to introduce yourself real quick while we wait for some answers to appear in the answers chat? But first, you have to unmute yourself.
We know it's live because David's talking to himself.
Correct. Muted in.
Still muted, David.
In StreamYard because you have the mute icon.
So what happens is when you move a window from one screen to another and one resolution is different, you lose the mute button. Nice.
Oh.
All right. So hi, David Ortinau. So yes, I work on Scott's team, principal program manager, specifically for the last 4.5 years, working on Xamarin Forms, which is your .NET for Android, iOS, Mac OS, tvOS, CarPlay, Android Wear. What are all the little things you can do with it? You can anything that runs on Mono Core CLR. So now, of course, working on .NET MAUI. Before I joined Microsoft, I like to tell everybody how I worked for 20+ years in creative and advertising, and specifically working on building interactive, cool things like 360 spinning globes that you can touch and move things.
Right.
But now we get to work on really cool stuff like .NET 6.
So, which leads us into a perfect first question. And what I'm going to do here is normally what happens is people ask Scott Hunter, what are you looking forward to the most in .NET 6? And then he answers, and then we're all left with, oh man, now what am I going to say? Because Hunter said all the cool stuff. So we're going to do the opposite of that. David, what are you looking forward to as part of .NET 6 the most is the first question that came through in the chat.
Yeah, so I'm definitely looking forward to .NET MAUI, but I would say the full hot reload pipeline, because from a developer productivity standpoint, I'm one of those developers that's like, I don't ever want to touch my mouse. That's how much I care about productivity. I want to keep my hands on my keyboard and just keep typing. And I want the IDE to just like basically code for me, and I can just keep going. With .NET Hot Reload, you get both the XAML Hot Reload if you're using XAML, totally optional, but then you get C# as well. And there's going to be a learning curve in terms of how do I retrigger this code? Where can I make these kinds of edits? But you never have to stop that running app. I did a live stream probably 2 years ago at this point with Ryan Davis, one of our MVPs in Australia. And he used another tool that he was kind of co-building that did this. And so for an hour and a half almost, we live streamed, and he never had to stop the running app to rebuild it to work on this app. And it was mind blowing. Once you experience that, you realize you're in a whole new era of software development for .NET. So that's certainly what I'm most excited about.
It is pretty cool. For me, I have a little bit of proximity bias, maybe because it happens to be what I've been looking at most recently. But we've been working on in the ASP.NET Core space. It's kind of a convergence of a bunch of work streams about making ASP.NET in general, but APIs within .NET 6 more approachable. Just easier to look at, easier to understand, easier to write, easier to build, right? And I don't think we realize, or at least I didn't realize going in, just how impactful that is right? It involves everything from language features, where they're taking advantage of the new features of C# and working. Maria on my team's working with, Mads Torgerson, designing C# language features to make .NET easy, to make ASP.NET Core to begin with easier to approach. And then having how that spreads out. And it means that the app model starts to get easier for things like microservices, where you're perhaps having a less complex individual process and you've got more multiples of them rather than a bigger, heavier process. And it's really allowing us to have an ASP.NET Core API scale down just as well as it scales up in terms of complexity, which is really nice and really good to see. And as we start teasing that out and finding all the right layering, it's going to be potentially impactful to the entire stack over the next release or two. It's starting in .NET 6, but in .NET 6, I'm seeing this thing that's going to be great, which is potentially going to change how .NET feels for the next couple of releases, .NET 7, .NET 8. Hunter, what do you think? What are you looking forward to the most?
So I have to double down with David a little bit and say probably my number one thing that I care about is hot reload. Since we reimagined .NET starting about 2014, we always knew that what we call the inner loop, and that is the cycle of writing some code, running your application, seeing the output, and then changing the code again. That's not fast enough. Especially when you compare our tech to things like Node.js or JavaScript-based stacks like React. .NET was just, we've always been great at runtime performance, probably better than any tech all up, if you look at it across the entire spectrum. But fixing that inner loop is really a big deal. And we won't fix all of it in .NET 6. .NET 6 will fix a chunk of it, and then we'll need feedback from you, the customers. Hey, I tried to do this and the app still required me to restart it. And what we'll do is every time we hear that, we'll go and figure out what you were doing and go, well, that language construct is something we need to make work in this scenario. And we'll make it better and better. The second thing that I would say, I'm going to put two in here, is I'm also excited really about .NET MAUI plus Blazor. And that is primarily because, I was a web developer when I joined Microsoft. I'm a big web guy. And I love the idea, we all are running applications like Microsoft Teams or Slack or VS Code. These are all actually web applications that are running in the Electron shell. That's a JavaScript shell. And, I want to give .NET developers the ability to build these web applications that can run on desktop devices or mobile devices and have access to all the actual underlying hardware. And so that is a super exciting one to me as well, especially seeing how easy it is. You literally take a .NET MAUI app and you put a reference into a Blazor project, and boom, you've got a web app that runs on all the apps. If you look at the demos we did at Build, it's really hard to tell the difference between the native WinUI based app we had running and the Blazor app. And so it's super exciting to me. Electron has some negative connotations with it, and that bad memory it uses and stuff like that. We're still too early in the .NET side to know how we're doing there, but we did a quick look at Build, and the weather app we showed was using 95 megs of RAM for the web version, and it was using 80 megs of RAM for the native version. So it looks like there was a 15 meg footprint increase by using the web, and we've not even optimized this yet. So that we'll start drilling into this and making it better and better and tighter and tighter. A default Hello World Electron app is about 190 megs, for instance. And so I think that's exciting too, for us to get into that same space and offer an alternative, and hopefully a faster and smaller footprint alternative.
Yeah. My experience with Electron apps has usually been gigabytes of RAM being used at any given moment. So I'm certainly happy if we ever get to that point, but I don't know if we will. So this is probably one for either Scott or David. Like, what does .NET MAUI mean / what does it stand for? Which one of you wants to take this one?
I'll do the first part of it, and I'll let David finish, because the next question is also a MAUI question as well. So, and I might actually butcher this now that I'm going to do it, and I'll let David fix me if I mess it up. But
perfect.
He's regretting it.
Yeah. It's live. It's live.
Actually, I refuse to butcher, so that will not be something that is allowed to happen here.
Okay.
But .NET MAUI was the, first I'll give some history. Microsoft bought Xamarin back in 2016, and Xamarin built tools for running applications on .NET on iOS and Android. That was kind of the primary goal of that. We'd always had visions of being able to take the Xamarin tech and make it work on Mac and Windows as well. And so that's, MAUI gets to do that as well. And we also had this notion of we wanted to actually put this tech directly in the product. Xamarin felt like it, I say this, but it's true. It felt like it was an add-on to .NET, and MAUI is part of .NET. And so what MAUI actually stands for is it stands for .NET Multi-Platform App UI, which is a bunch of words. And so we abbreviate that down to .NET MAUI. But literally it is the next generation of Xamarin Forms. It lets you build applications that use native controls that run on Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android.
Excellent. No butchering at all. So I'll add a few things. Yeah. So, when it came to the name, because it's fun to talk about names sometimes, we suggested a lot of names, and we landed on this one, first of all, because MAUI just has such wonderful positive connotations. Who doesn't want to go to a island in the ocean and hang out and drink cold drinks with umbrellas? Really emphasizing the .NET was super important. Having worked with Xamarin and Xamarin customers, and before joining, having used Xamarin as a primary technology that I advocated for with customers across all different market segments, we get the question a lot. What is Microsoft's investment in Xamarin? Is it going to be around for a while? Because when you choose Microsoft technologies, you want to know you've got 5, maybe even 10 years plus to depend upon that. And so we were constantly answering that question: is Xamarin important? Is Xamarin being used? And now having it as .NET MAUI, it's a very clear message to hopefully everyone that it is absolutely a core part of our offering. It's something you can depend upon. It will continue to be invested in as long as we can, obviously make it useful to everybody. And I think the other exciting thing, because I also came from that freelancing and contracting world, being able to go in and say, yes, .NET is a solution we can use for these types of apps, has a stronger recognition for you and for us than Xamarin ever did. So there's a huge positive there as well. Should I go ahead and answer the next one too?
Yeah, so the next question is, .NET MAUI sessions look very promising. Does MAUI replace Xamarin Forms, or is MAUI built on Xamarin Libraries, which I was about to throw to you? So yeah, keep going.
So it is, you can think of it as a next version of Xamarin Forms, because it literally is that. It will take over for Xamarin Forms. Your projects will migrate forward. There are some changes, which we are documenting now. We're also working with the .NET Upgrade Assistant to enhance that with the try convert tools to make sure that your CS proj becomes unified with the short form SDK style projects. We're also adopting multi-targeting, simplifying the whole solution down from 3, 4, 5 projects to just the one base project. Of course, you can still add your library projects and things like that. But, from a starting point, it's much nicer and cleaner to start with where your focus is, which is your app. And that's the one project you need to worry about. So a lot of that is coming as well, and your projects will move right forward with Xamarin Forms. The way the rest of Xamarin Libraries work, they need to be moved to .NET 6. So iOS and Android apps that may not use the cross-platform UI stuff, there's no namespace changes. All that stuff just upgrades to the next version of .NET. And of course, we keep pace with everything that Android and Google ship in terms of the primary OSs, binding those frameworks so that you can use the latest stuff when it becomes generally available. So all of that stuff comes in .NET 6. And we're also doing some key improvements. So Xamarin Forms is actually like a 7-year-old code base. Started out as a quick prototyping solution, rapidly gained momentum with developers because it was such a nice productivity tool. It did offer a XAML alternative that was very comfortable. And what we've learned over those 7 years, first of all, it's very durable as a architecture, as an abstraction. iOS changed design a couple of times. Android has changed design a few times, and we've been able to keep pace with that without you having to rewrite your whole applications, in addition to just the general version updates. But we also learned that we have some key areas to improve upon. One of those being performance, another one being customization extensibility, which I kind of bring those together. So, you drop an entry on the screen and it's going to look like an iOS entry on iOS, an Android entry on Android, a Windows entry on UWP or WinUI. And sometimes you want to unify those things. So how easy is it for you to customize that? So those are things that we're improving upon in .NET MAUI with the new architecture. Highly recommend, I'm not going to go through all the details. Check out our build demos and our sessions there. Lots of content online that describe all of this. We actually have documentation now, docs.microsoft.com/.net/MAUI. So check that out too, and we'll be adding more architectural details there.
Awesome. So, is code in Blazor WASM Apps in .NET 6 still interpreted or compiled like The answer to that is both, basically. Like you kind of have the option to do either. The default will be that it'll still be interpreted because and so you can choose to opt in. And the reason for that is that not being interpreted can make you faster, but there are a couple of caveats that people kind of need to understand to choose what they're going to do. So for example, when you pre-compile your application down to WebAssembly, your app gets about twice as big, which then means your initial download size of downloading all of that native WASM code is going to be longer. So your initial page load is slower. And also your publish step, like your build time, can go from 10 seconds to 10 minutes. So it's hard for us right now to make the default be compiled, because then your default experience, if you don't know anything about AOT versus interpreted WASM, like you don't know anything about this space, all you know is Blazor apps take 10 minutes to compile and are real slow to load. Right. And so at the moment, we're going to leave the defaults as they are in interpreted mode and then let people choose once they realize and once they learn a little bit about this space to jump into the alternative. But the answer is you'll be able to do both of those things.
Well, I would hope so also, Glenn, that in the future we could actually make it where, right now it's a binary switch. In .NET 6, you decide to AOT your Blazor app and we AOT the entire thing. I think in the long run, I want to get to a model where you can actually attribute your code and just tell us what you want to actually turn into AOT, ahead of time compiled code, because you might have some calculations or some loops or stuff like that that are really, really important. But general like click handling and stuff like that probably is irrelevant when it comes to being run as native code. And so hopefully we're going to give you some dials in the future in the .NET 7 wave. I would say that our AOT stuff at the moment is still kind of early days, and we're still like getting the good experiences and working out where all the right dials are to give you the perfect experience, right? And as we dial that in more and more and more, give you the right options, get all of your feedback, you'll end up with really good kind of AOT support in this front. And I think we'll have probably one of the best experiences you can find eventually.
We know a little bit about AOT on the mobile side, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
We introduced a little bit back profiled AOT, or startup tracing is what we call it, because we were optimizing for startup. And the way that this works, and we'll probably, I would imagine, use a similar technique as Scott's describing, where you actually run your application once and it looks for the slow paths, and then it provides a profile and says, okay, these are the paths that we recommend optimizing for. And then the next time you compile and run your application with that profile, that just those slower paths get AOT'd and the rest of the application JITs. AOT is certainly not a magic wand that fixes everybody's problems in terms of performance. So you kind of, you need to have those dials, and I would love to see a way to just annotate specific things. That would be great.
Yeah, that's right. Like, and we did the same teams are working on it. They have this knowledge, and there is a lot of cross learnings happening on this front, which has been really great to see. So another question, I think, presumably goes to you, David. What is the difference between Mobile Blazor binding and .NET MAUI Blazor? What is just good to go with?
Yes. Well, so first of all, Mobile Blazor bindings is essentially using the Blazor component model to mimic the native or the MAUI controls. So in MAUI, for example, we have a button, And that button, when realized on iOS, is a UI button. That's the UI kit element. On Android, it's a button widget. On on Windows, it's a button. And on Mac, it's a UI button also. And so what Blazor Mobile Bindings does is says, okay, we're going to give you a Blazor development experience, but we're actually going to use those controls. So you end up with a native button, you end up with a native, image control, et cetera, et cetera. Now, native or .NET MAUI Blazor is the hybrid mode that Scott was describing earlier, where you have a Blazor web view that is hosted inside of a .NET MAUI application. And then all of your UI is expressed as, well, not all, but the majority of your UI in your Blazor app is expressed as HTML, CSS, and C#. And so the sweet thing, almost magical, it's really one of those things you have to experience, is all the .NET code is .NET code. I've asked Alon Lipton and Sanderson and Dan Roth about this because it just blows my mind. But when you use that Blazor web view, there's really no boundaries between what is the Blazor app code running and what is on the native side, whether you're using a MAUI Essentials API to access, the system tray or local notifications or sensors on the operating system, or if you want to pop other UI that uses specifically MAUI native UI controls, you can blend that however you need to. So that's really the difference between those two projects. We learned from what we did with the Blazor Mobile Bindings, harvested that Blazor web view as a native wrapped control. It uses the native web view on each platform where you run it, and it uses the new web view 2 control where that's available. But the key thing also is that .NET MAUI Blazor is part of .NET 6. .NET, I just throw .NET in front of everything. The Mobile Blazor Bindings is still an experiment, so we'll continue to iterate on that and see where that can take us. But right now, if you're going to build an app, highly recommend going the .NET MAUI Blazor route and kind of tweaking what you need to be native UI and native APIs and what you want to be Blazor Razor components and that sort of thing.
Right. Nice. So I'll knock out a couple of questions. How compatible is WebAssembly Blazor with current mobile phone browsers? WebAssembly is supported by all modern phone browsers, and as such, so is WebAssembly Blazor. So it should work on every modern, every phone browser, every mobile phone browser. But you might need to make sure you got the latest version to make sure the WebAssembly support is there. Modulo, every now and then we hit bugs. Like right now, there's a regression with the Chrome browser, for example, and we're fixing it. It's a point-in-time problem. We'll have it fixed pretty soon. But generally, it works. Though it'll work with all modern phone browsers, all modern browsers in general, in fact. And then I'm going to skip to one, which is: are there any .NET events coming up?
So, come on, do the other one first.
Man, when will it? I was going to skip to it because I thought it'd be quick, but okay, we'll come back to it.
I think this is a quick one.
Yeah, okay. When I've got a helicopter going overhead. When officially web and Linux be supported in .NET MAUI?
So I'll throw out that. So if people want .NET MAUI on Linux, you need to give us feedback. Here's the reality. 98% of all desktops are covered by other operating systems in Linux. And so when we hear it, my first reaction is, oh, it's like a checkbox list. We checked all the boxes. But we've only had one real customer come to us and actually give us a valid reason to run a .NET MAUI application on Linux. That said, there are some people on our team, because we have a bunch of nerds, that have got .NET MAUI running on Linux internally. And probably what we would do, David can correct me if he doesn't like my answer, is we might just make that an experimental GitHub project that's kind of an open source thing that can kind of go its own direction. We would not go build official support for it until there's a reason to do so. Other than just it's cool. We love cool, but the reality is we want to have a high quality product for all the other platforms that we support. The other question was web. Do we plan to do .NET MAUI for web? And I would really say the answer, if you really are looking for an app that can run on the web and on all the devices, I would go with the Blazor version of MAUI. If you watch the build demo that we did in the talk, we actually showed a Blazor web app that was running great in the browser, and then we wrapped it in a .NET MAUI application, and it ran on devices as well. And if you want that kind of thing on .NET, I think that's it. I don't think we have any desires at this point in time to go try to build a control suite of native controls that runs in the browser when there's a great option with Blazor there today. And with that, I'll hand it back to Glenn to answer that final question.
I resemble that nerd comment. Anyway, are there any .NET events coming up? So obviously .NET Conf in November, where we and release everything and announce everything. Yeah, look at that. It even says, look at that, November 9 to 11. Look at how great these people are that are running the back end of this. It's like magic. Go to .NET Conf. Like it's great. It's an amazing conference. Probably our best and biggest conference of the year for .NET specifically.
You're missing something too, Glenn. That date, November 9th, is the release date of .NET 6.
That's right.
So not only do we have a virtual conference in November, but it's actually the launch event for .NET. We ship .NET every year now, and this year will be a special year because it'll be an LTS release. So if your team or company is looking for a long-term supported version of .NET, this will be the long-term supported version of .NET, and you're going to get the hot reload tech that we talked about. You're going to get the .NET MAUI tech that we talked about. You're going to get the MAUI plus Blazor. You're going to get Blazor AOT. You're going to get the minimal API work, or approachable APIs, as I like to call them, that Glenn's team has been working on. A bunch of C# enhancements we're working on to make it
fast editing framework, like FastEF. You've seen the slides for FastEF.
Oh yeah, I left that off too. Entity Framework Core is now 70% faster year over year from the previous version, and now it's actually on par with some of the lightweight open source ORM technologies out there, like Dapper from the Stack Exchange folks. And so, lots of good stuff coming in .NET 6, released in November.
Yep. Yeah, that's the event, and I think that's effectively us for time. One thing I'll add about the EF performance thing, what is great about it is, and we've seen this over and over again with the Tekka-Power benchmarks, is that we kind of break bottlenecks, right? Like when we started pushing our plain text benchmark, our plain text, in web, for example, right up, we got real fast, and then everyone went, oh, we should be able to do that too. And the state of the art got better. Everybody got faster over and over again. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the same thing happen with EF. EF is now really close to Dapper. Dapper will go do some work. They'll get much faster. We'll chase it again. And in general, everybody gets better and the whole world gets faster because we're pushing these sorts of things. And it's great to see everybody getting better and better because of it.
That's what's fun about the open source community, Glenn, is it's no longer just a closed ecosystem. We're now out there with the rest of the community, and we're all pushing each other, and it's making .NET better, and as a result, all of our customers are going to win.
Absolutely. And I think that's it, right? Our time is up, and there's no more questions in the prompter. So I think that's it.
Sweet.
Go and check out the links. Come in November. If nothing else, come to .NET Conf in November. You'll probably see us again, and you'll definitely see some amazing .NET content. Also, go to dot.net and download the latest previews of .NET 6. Yeah, let us know. Feedback is the most valuable thing you can give us, especially right now. Tell us what you think. Create GitHub issues. Talk to the engineers on the team. When you go create a new GitHub issue, some engineer that works on the thing that you're talking about is probably going to read it. You have direct access to the people building the product, and your thoughts and opinions are valuable, and we will hear them. So
yes,
go do it.
We absolutely want your feedback.
Yeah.
Don't be silent. Tell us.
Yeah. See you all later, I guess. I don't know.
Thanks.
Bye.